What is up, wrestling fans, and welcome to the very first episode, or at least the first episode numerically, not the episode 0 that we've done before, but the very first episode of the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast. The champ is here. And joining me, once again, me being Callum Wiggins, because I'm going to remember to introduce myself from now on, joining me back in time in this journey is Robert DeFelice.
I'm very excited to be the Taz to your Michael Cole as we go
Don't
throughout
ever
the
call me
script.
Michael Cole.
I have to.
At least I don't have to say boss time in this period.
No, you won't.
No.
I'll have to say here comes the pain a few times.
This is our first episode where we're going to be reviewing the first episode of SmackDown from our journey, which is the June 27th, 2002 episode of SmackDown from the Allstate Arena in Chicago, Illinois. Actually, Rosemont, Illinois. But they say Chicago because they don't like small towns.
Yeah, so. I've been told that it's actually quite a drive to get to the Allstate Arena. It is the Allstate Arena at this point? It's not still the Rosemont?
As far as I'm told from when I did the just collecting the notes from it, it said Allstate Arena. I can't say for certain if it wasn't, but I think that was what came up at the start of the episode.
Okay, because I know that must have been a very recent change.
So how this is going to work, if you didn't see episode 0, is that we're going to review this episode of SmackDown. That's going to be the meat of this entire episode is the review of the 27th episode, or 27th of June episode, to really kick off this journey in style with the John Cena debut. That's going to be like the big talking point probably. But before that, because I want this to have kind of an essence of the 2001, let's talk a little bit about the contextual news at the time. So we kind of mentioned this in episode 0, but we mentioned the fact that Steve Austin, should I say, not Hulk Hogan, Steve Austin, walked out of WWE in the couple of weeks earlier to this for refusing to do the job to Brock Lesnar. Well, not refusing to do the job, refusing to do the match because he thought it was a stupid idea.
Well, I've heard him say that he didn't mind losing to him on Raw. He's like, can we just give it a week of build or give it a something of build? Because Austin's an old school guy, and this isn't an era where they're just like, no, the match itself will be the rating. And Austin was not down with that.
It was kind of like we're entering the period of really hot shot booking in that there's not really a huge plan. They're just trying to... even in this case, you can't even say they were trying to pop a number. They were just wanting to do something for the sake of doing something and thought it'd be cool to have Brock Lesnar go over on Steve Austin, maybe use that to build up to a rematch further down the line. But you never know if that rematch was ever going to be fulfilled because plans were changing pretty much day to day at this point.
Yeah.
Austin also unfortunately made the headlines for his domestic abuse incident against his wife, Deborah at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
His now
very,
wife, Deborah.
Very uncomfortable stuff.
It's always kind of rubbed me up the wrong way, and it's not just Austin. It's like tons of big stars. Like I've mentioned in the past about like the Mike Tyson thing leading up to AEW. It's like people like Floyd Mayweather, that sort of group of people who can kind of do no wrong because they're so famous or because they're so big in their industry.
Yeah, very wrong.
Yeah, so Austin kind of gets a free pass from fans due to that, but I just wanted to bring it up here because that was part of the reason, due to the fact that he was banged up, he was creatively frustrated, and also this incident coming up to basically his relationship was crumbling. It's kind of why we're not going to see him pretty much for the entirety of the journey, because he doesn't come back to WWE until No Way Out 2003, which is the last pay-per-view in our journey. And he's on Raw anyway, so we wouldn't even refer to him that much.
No, that's really a shame, because Austin was a huge part, and he kind of just fizzles out.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, because obviously I mentioned in episode 0 that this is when I started watching WWE. So I didn't really know who Austin was for a while. So it's kind of weird that like the biggest star besides The Rock, and I knew who The Rock was over time because he appears on SmackDown, but like the guy who was like the huge deal, I didn't really get to know until around about WrestleMania 19 time.
Man,
I know he's the big deal.
I mean, but it really makes you think, though, that also probably shaped your fandom and why you are a fan of the things you are, and maybe not a fan of certain things.
No, but I've come back in like recent times to kind of appreciate the Austin style match. I just always, my first love is the matches that people like Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit would have, the kind of more long-winded not such mat-based, but very suplex-orientated style match. But over time, so I think, yeah, Austin kind of had a point of just getting in the ring and brawling with people. That's kind of can kind of work as well.
Yeah.
I have to mention, again, I don't like always the news segment to be a big downer, but a big incident that happened around about this time was Bret Hart suffered his stroke.
Yes.
So what happened was that it's kind of not, it wasn't clarified, at least at the time, whether he suffered a stroke prior to crashing his bicycle or essentially he crashed his bicycle and then had a stroke on top of that. But he went cycling without a helmet, hit a pothole, he went over the handlebars, and that injured him, and he suffered a stroke alongside it. So
yeah,
it was it's another one of a long list of shitty things that happened to Bret Hart.
That Hart family, man, they really are the Kennedys of wrestling. It's very strange and sad.
I kind of think, who has it worse, the Harts or the Von Erichs? I'd kind of put the Von Erichs ahead of the Harts.
Yeah, the
Von Erichs very close.
Von Erich stuff is terrible. Maybe one day we'll go back and do some of that. But
it's bad to be a big family in wrestling, it seems. Some more bad news, but in a more hilarious capacity, Vince Russo is back for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I wanted to get into this. So this is that time where he's trying to come back, but he didn't like the fact that it wouldn't just be him and Ferrara, right? Because they were in the writer's room era because of Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara.
Yeah, so essentially he was rehired in a short-term creative consultancy role. So he did actually come back to the company, but he left off 2 weeks after feeling that he'd been disrespected by both Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. Because he was essentially in the creative consultancy role, he was answering to Stephanie McMahon because she was head of creative, and Stephanie didn't think he was any good, Triple H didn't think he was any good, and so he decided, yeah, I'm not going to have this, and walked out. And he joins very soon after TNA, who in June start their very first weekly pay-per-view events. It's an odd time where, essentially going back and reading the newsletters, they're just saying, oh, Vince Russo's back, and I guess they're just trying to spark back up the Attitude Era stuff. And then a couple of weeks later, you just see the headline, Vince Russo joins TNA. If you were actually just a fan at the time, where did that happen? I thought he was back in WWE.
It's interesting because, I guess this is still an era where they feel like he's got a lot to offer. I don't know if anybody would hire Vince Russo today. I would assume not, but you never know.
I don't think Bradshaw would.
No, I don't think he would either.
Do you know what Russo's big idea was when he came back?
No.
Relaunch the invasion angle.
No, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, that was his big idea, was to say that basically he just said, bro, I got a great idea. The invasion angle didn't work. And the reason, no WCW guys. Okay? So what we're going to do is going to get Eric Bischoff, get Goldberg, get Sting, get Scott Steiner, get Bret Hart, even though he can't wrestle, get Bret Hart, and basically going to do the whole invasion thing all over again.
Now, credit to Vince McMahon here, who has often been credited as taking nuggets of Vince Russo's ideas and putting them forward. He got Eric Bischoff, he got Goldberg, he got Steiner, and let the rest of that go.
Yeah, he got Sting eventually. It took him a long time to do it, but he eventually got it. Russo ended up turning down. He'd been offered a $125,000 a year stay-at-home deal, and then he refused that to take a $100,000 a year. $100,000 a year full-time role with TNA instead. I was going to say, I don't think Russo was in charge for the first couple of pay-per-view events they did, but then he took over, and that's when you kind of see the midgets take over.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. I think we did the right thing. I say we like I work there. I think WWE did the right thing by saying no to Vince Russo.
I think we did the right thing in deciding that we're not going back to check the TNA pay-per-views instead.
I would agree that I think we did the right thing very much so. Oh, some fun AJ Styles matches in there, you know?
Hey, if people want us to subject us to these TNA weekly pay-per-views they used to do, then they can hit up the $50 tier on Patreon and force us to watch it.
That's right.
If you pay $50, you can force us to watch anything.
And I think the term "pick your poison" has never been more appropriate.
So King of the Ring took place the Sunday prior to this episode. So that was Brock Lesnar won the King of the Ring. He beat Rob Van Dam in the final, so he would get a WWE Championship opportunity at SummerSlam. And the rest is history from that point, really.
Yeah, then he just runs roughshod over the entire place for 2 years and then leaves
And
before
then
coming
comes back to run roughshod over the
Yeah.
company for nearly 10
nearly a
years.
decade. Yeah.
Yeah. The Undertaker retained the Undisputed title over Triple H. The Rock made his return during that match and attacked The Undertaker.
Perhaps more importantly, on the road to that match, and I hope throughout this journey, maybe you can shed some light. They were going to do Triple H joins the NWO, and that just didn't happen.
Well, I think one big reason why that didn't happen is because of one big man's quads failing him.
Yeah, but even prior to the big man's quads failing him, they just were randomly like, yeah, the NWO is dead.
Well, it's funny because I can shed a little bit of light on it. Obviously, I don't want to go too far ahead, but the NWO only disbands the week after Kevin Nash's injury.
So you think he just got injured and they just said...
Yeah, they were. I mean, the match that he got injured in features the NWO in that match against the team of like Raw superstars. So in that match, he is teaming with the Big Show, who was part of the NWO at that time, and Shawn Waltman, who was part of the NWO at the time. And Shawn Michaels was not involved in the match, but he was part of the NWO.
Because I always wondered, like, how much that would change the 2002 Michaels comeback, because nothing looks the same.
No. I think they essentially pivoted from that, had Triple H join Raw, and instead of him joining the NWO, he joined they decided to reform DX, or at least briefly. But again, that's something, we're talking about Raw. This is SmackDown, damn it. I want to talk about SmackDown.
Yes, that's
But before that, we need
my
to
bad.
we need to talk a little bit about Raw did in the episode. So Raw's episode, for the sake of posterity, Raw's rating, they got a 3.7 rating for the 6/24th, the 24th of June episode of Raw. So the Brock Lesnar faced RVD for the Intercontinental title in the main event.
Surprised he didn't win.
No, it was a DQ finish, which spoiler alert is also what happens at Vengeance. So
yeah,
so get used to that.
Just killing time for good old Brock.
Vince did his ruthless aggression pep talk speech, where he basically surrounded the ring with Raw and SmackDown superstars and just gave the big, I want to see ruthless aggression, I want to see competition between Raw and SmackDown, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and the ruthless aggression speech, I remember watching that live, and obviously you can't formulate as an 8-year-old, oh, they're launching a new era, but it was one of the better speeches by Vince McMahon on television, and I love everything that comes after.
So Goldust did a Crocodile Dundee comedy segment with the NWO. That's the segment where he dressed up as Crocodile Dundee, and was it Crocodile Dundee? It was probably Steve Irwin, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the Crocodile Hunter.
Yeah, Crocodile Hunter. Yeah, so where he goes up to the Big Show when he's like fast asleep, eating, and Big Show dreams about cheeseburgers. It's one of those like classic WWE comedy segments that's funny to Vince McMahon and probably not to most people.
And the way you frame that as Big Show dreams about cheeseburgers, I gotta say that sounds pretty funny.
And I guess it's not a big deal, but something that I find quite funny about this episode is that Tommy Dreamer defeated Raven in a match which banished Raven to Heat.
What?
So it was basically a loser leaves Raw match, but it didn't mean that Raven was fired. It meant that Raven could only wrestle on Heat.
That's so funny on numerous levels.
It was funny because like it was meant to be like a big deal because it's Tommy Dreamer against Raven, like this big the iconic ECW rivalry. They gave him about 2 minutes to wrestle. Dreamer beat Raven with a DDT, or actually probably with a Death Valley Driver, and then Raven went to Heat and then started to try and get his Seven Sins angle over until he left for TNA.
Wow, what an awkward time, man.
But that's what Raw was up to. So let's move on to the actual episode of SmackDown itself. Realistic rating of SmackDown was a 3.79. So I've kind of given this as a tie because it's hard to really tell specifically what the 3.7 was on Raw, whether that was high or low. So they basically had the same rating for this episode.
I think that's fair.
The benchmark. That'll be the benchmark to start off with. The show starts with, well, essentially the iconic image we're going to be seeing for a lot of these episodes: the fist, the big SmackDown fist, and the pyro surrounding it.
How they haven't, and I guess it'll come eventually because they are getting more into their nostalgia, but how the fist hasn't resurfaced in some regard, I don't know.
Yeah, we've had the In Your House back at some point, so why can't we just have the big fist now?
Yeah, well, we're going to get there. I have strong faith in the company that we're going to get the fist.
So Michael Cole informs us on commentary that Vince McMahon is already at ringside, and it's announced that Hulk Hogan versus Chris Jericho will be the main event of the episode. Hulk Hogan against Chris Jericho in 2002. It's the weirdest because it's the biggest star of the 1980s against the biggest star of AEW. Yeah, in the 2020s. It's like this weird period where Jericho isn't quite there yet, and Hulk Hogan is past that point.
But you know, I really, especially knowing what we know now, you should enjoy and not take for granted the fact that Hulk Hogan is wrestling on weekly television.
I have to say that I get a weird amount of joy, and it's like Hulk Hogan's a dick in real life, and he seems like he's a really awful human being. But I get this wry pleasure about seeing him perform because he makes everyone so happy. Like everyone in the crowd is just so happy to see him. It doesn't matter that basically his entire match is just punching a guy in the head, big booting them, and hitting a leg drop because he can't do anything else.
Doesn't have to matter. He's just that he's so over.
Yeah. But we'll get to that. So Vince McMahon's at ringside. He smiles and announces Kurt Angle to the ring. And this is basically a big promo segment for Angle celebrating the fact that he forced Hulk Hogan to tap out at King of the Ring. And he is the first man, at least by this rhetoric, to force Hulk Hogan to tap out.
I think that's legit. Unless the only thing I can think of is in Japan, maybe, because Hulk Hogan never tapped before then.
He passed out in the sleeper hold to Roddy Piper.
Oh, right.
In WCW.
Okay.
So he's never been forced to tap on WWE television before, at least like in that point in time. Well, that's also interesting, the fact that I will be able to refer to WWE as WWE at this point because they have now gotten the F out.
Yeah,
and they are WWE.
The draft imagery, and it still says WWF champion, WWF tag team champions.
Yeah, now they're WWE stuff. We move on to, so Angle's wearing a wig because as we alluded to on like episode 0, he has only just recently had his head shaved by Edge at Judgment Day. And so he was wearing the wig because he was ashamed of the fact that he was bald.
I honestly feel like this is as big of a segment for Angle embracing his baldness as it is for John Cena debuting, because I associate Kurt Angle's hair with like the cheesy comedy and the Jimmy Crackhorn, and I don't care. I associate bald Kurt Angle with Wrestling Machine.
I think there is a bit of crossover with that one. I feel like he still does a little bit of he definitely gets more intense around about like the 2004, 2005 era. I think right now he's bridging between absolute amazing wrestler and still the comedy side of it as well. He removes his wig, he embraces the baldness. He talks about how he forced Hulk Hogan to tap out, how he beat The Undertaker the week before in a tag team match. So he's on cloud 9, and so he can't have anyone dampen his mood. He's going to issue an open challenge to someone who he's never faced before to come out and try and take on Kurt Angle. And who answers the call? As everybody knows,
it's John Cena.
It's Maven. No, it's John Cena. John Cena comes out in a set of red and black tights that we were reintroduced to at WrestleMania 36. And he answers the network challenge. I don't know whether this was the music that he actually used, because it's hard to tell when you watch the network whether this was actually the music that he used or whether it was different.
It might have been, because it seems generic enough that it's probably just a Jim Johnston bit that they have access to.
Yeah. So Cena has a terrible haircut.
Yeah, but...
And he doesn't look... I mean, obviously, it's John Cena, but he doesn't look like the John Cena that we went that we grew up with in like most of the
He's not
2000s.
chain gang leader, Cena.
No jorts, no sneakers, no colourful t-shirts, no wristbands or anything like that. This is create a wrestler John Cena.
Yeah.
And so Angle asks who he is, and he says John Cena. And Angle asks what quality makes him feel like that he can beat him. And this is when they're really trying to get the ruthless aggression bit over.
Yeah, because we should acknowledge that Kurt Angle said he's the poster child for ruthless aggression. And John Cena says, probably the one moment that single-handedly kills the term ruthless aggression, John Cena says, ruthless. Like, he really just I don't know what he's trying to do there, but he says ruthless aggression, smacks Kurt Angle across the face, and we're off to the races.
Yeah, so it's Kurt Angle versus John Cena, the first match of our journey, arguably one of the most pivotal matches of our entire journey. Starting off with a big one, and there is nothing that Cena does in this match he ever does.
Again.
Well, not as much again, and we're going to see it a lot in the early 2002, but nothing in his 5 moves of doom, nothing that he kind of really like incorporates into his arsenal in the 2010s or whatever. This is John Cena doing basic wrestler stuff. This is what I would like to class as young boy John Cena. This is like, but instead of using Boston Crabs, he's using a spine buster, and basically every variation of a spine buster that he can think of.
You know, Cena, before this, he's in OVW as the prototype, and this is a comedy now, but he's widely considered to be a fantastic, arrogant, wrestling-driven heel. And when you hear that, and you think of John Cena as you know him, it just doesn't add up. But he's the prototype. He's got this weird, like, slicked back hair, which Vince immediately tells him to cut. And again, maybe John Cena ushers this in. The era of everybody has the same, like, crew cut looking hairstyle, and all the wrestlers start looking the same. It starts with Cena, but Cena's also the only wrestler who was able to advance because he knew enough to evolve and be a great character. But as a first match, I thought this was pretty good for a rookie match.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't see anything like majorly wrong with it. Cena hit a Stinger Splash in this match.
Yeah, he did.
He also hits one of the ugliest power slams that I've ever seen. I don't think
nervous.
Cena knew how to do a power slam. He just did something that kind of embodied it, but wasn't actually a power slam.
He's probably just super nervous.
So he breaks up. He keeps getting out of like the ankle slam, and he avoids the ankle lock constantly. Then so Angle puts him in a double chicken wing pin, and that's how he pins him.
I like it. It seems very like, well, it's wrestling. You are in the ring with an Olympic gold medalist.
He just got out wrestled by him.
Yeah, I thought it's very good because Angle, as we're gonna see moving forward, is very big on the wrestling thing. Like, he uses a triangle choke to get the Undertaker down. He starts really playing on the fact that, hey, he is an Olympic athlete.
So Cena asks for a handshake post-match. Angle looks dumbfounded, like says, "No, I'm not going to shake your hand," just leaves. And as Angle walks up the ramp, Cena continues to smile, and he does a little symbol to say, like, oh, okay, I was this close to beating you. But Angle walks back, and he seemingly wants to just fight him again, but then he backs up again because he's a heel. And so, see, one of the hard things is to tell about how over Cena was from the get-go is something that we'll come back to multiple times on this journey, because this is SmackDown, this is pre-recorded SmackDown. It's that fucking crowd noise.
Yep.
I hate that crowd noise with an absolute passion.
They pipe in so much crowd noise, and it was apparent to me from minute one, but I'm sure at the time I just thought, oh, cool, the people are into it. But yeah, a lot of piped in crowd noise for SmackDown.
The only time that I'm certain that there's no crowd noise coming in is when it's Hulk Hogan's entrance and the crowd is going absolutely fucking wild regardless.
It's probably the sample they use for the rest of the night.
Yeah, I know. I can always, I can't make the sound itself, but I can always picture in my mind. It's like etched in my mind that sound of like screaming. That's kind of like the really weird tinny screaming noise that they would make whenever somebody does something really cool or interesting. Just like it's just etched in my mind anyway. Just a few on facts on top of this match, because it's a pivotal match in wrestling history. So I thought I might as well just expand on it a little bit. According to the Observer, Cena didn't know he was going to be wrestling on this show until 3 hours prior to the event. He was already doing house shows on SmackDown, so he knew he was going to be on SmackDown eventually, but he didn't know he was going to be wrestling on this night until a couple of hours before the show. Which kind of really screams, yeah, it sounds like 2020 WWE to me.
You know, one thing we got to talk about, because it's ever present here, Vince McMahon goes through this phase where he insists that wrestlers just use their real name. And that's why, probably more than anything, this is probably the one decision that worked out the best for John Cena in the long run. But that's why John Cena is just John Cena. You're going to see that throughout this journey. Like, Shelton Benjamin is just Shelton Benjamin. We won't see him because he's on Raw and it's in 04, but Gene Snitsky, like, Vince just went through this phase of like, why would I ever change anybody's name? Which is just a weird, like, you can see how quickly his mentality must shift.
So Cena, when he was interviewed about the match at like late years, definitely when he was the biggest star in wrestling. So that's like, he said, it wasn't the match itself or the body of the match, it was the fact that it happened. It's not that I was more or less accepted backstage. I didn't have a sense of entitlement, achievement, or acceptance. I knew I had a start. And if you look back, it was an improper start, but a start nonetheless. It just didn't work. The situation I was put in wasn't the right time. I would soon evolve into something extremely different and go from there. But the most important thing about it was that it was a beginning. You can't have a good story without a beginning. So you kind of get a sense like he knows that he wasn't ready at that point. He looks back, he knows that he wasn't ready, but he needed that just one starting point. So he appreciates that.
Yeah, and it was, as far as I'm concerned, it's as good of a starting point as any wrestler could ever have. But, you know, he says all the time he could have been fired. And I'm sure we're all glad that everything worked out and John Cena wasn't fired, because he would end up carrying the company for a good 15 years.
Angle in turn said about the match that he wanted to teach John Cena a lesson. He literally tried to get him tired in that match in order to test him. Angle doesn't have a great memory and says that. He says, if you ever watch it, it's 12 minutes of non-stop movement. It was not even 12 minutes long. It was probably close to 6.
It's wrestler embellishment.
Yeah. I made him earn the respect that he deserves, and he knows it, but he didn't get tired. He was one of the few guys that kept up with me in the ring. I tested him and passed him with flyers. Whenever you hear about Angle is always very high on Cena's wrestling ability. He always I mean, I'll say it until the cows come home. Angle should have faced John Cena in his last match. I'm never going to change my mind on that. Baron Corbin was a stupid idea, and it soured me on like Angle, and it's one of the big reasons why I'm never going to like Baron Corbin. And maybe that's kind of the reason for it. Maybe I'm just a mark that's been worked for it. But I'm not going to like him, and I'm not going to ever appreciate him.
Well, I like John Cena. I've grown to like John Cena.
I know I like John Cena. I was talking about Corbin. It wasn't talking about Cena.
But hold on, I'm getting there. Because John Cena's a guy who, in the beginning, I hated his wrestling style. I thought it was a disgrace to wrestling. You know, frustrated me because it's like, there's all these other guys. There's Edge, there's Randy. Why does Cena get all this love? He does eventually find his way, and I'm hoping that Corbin can do the same. But, I'm a little more given up on Corbin than I am willing to see if he gets that John Cena run. I don't think he ever will.
So backstage, Rikishi, Ron Simmons, and Billy Kidman congratulate John Cena. And then The Undertaker comes by, the Undisputed Champion, offers him a handshake, Cena accepts. Undertaker's in this weird balance at the moment where he's not quite babyface, he's not quite heel.
Oh, they're so close to turning him face. And he's right above the, Jeff Hardy thing where he's going to beat the shit out of him. in a ladder match, and then, shake his hand, and then he becomes a full-on babyface because America. But I think that's a little further down the road.
Yeah, a little bit further. Let's talk about the first championship match of our journey. The World Tag Team Championships are on the line as Billy and Chuck with Rico defend against Hulk Holly and the Big Valboski.
In their first ever tag team match, Cal.
Yes.
This is the first time they've ever teamed, and they're just getting a title shot.
We've come a long way since 2002 in terms of how TV shows portray
homosexuals.
Yeah, homosexuality. Now we have people like Jake Atlas who embraces it. Well, not much part of his gimmick, but he embraces it and he wants to be a pioneer for it. Sonya Deville, obviously.
It just so happens that they're gay. They don't have
just so happens that they're gay, but they have
that they're gay.
Yeah, they have personalities as well, and they have their own faults and own characters outside the fact that they're homosexual. Whereas now we have in 2002 we have Billy and Chuck and Rico. And all of which I believe are heterosexual in real life.
I believe so.
And yeah, they're just going.
Rico could have fooled me, but
if you've never seen Billy and Chuck before,
Billy and Chuck it's okay. How can I paint this picture? It's 2002. You know how, I don't know if you know this because you're in the UK, but Friends, which was a very popular show, is now widely considered to be one of the worst, most offensive, so stupid, how could anybody laugh at this, sitcoms. This is a very Friends take on the LGBT community.
So Big Valboski, as we mentioned, episode 0, but bring it up here, was referred to as the Big Valboski. He was not referred to as Val Venus.
Still don't know why.
Nope, still don't know why, and I don't care enough to really do, because if anything's taught me in 2020 is that the Big Valboski doesn't deserve my time or attention.
Oh, no. Yeah, he's a dick now.
I'm annoyed about the fact that you had Hulk Holly and Big Valboski as a tag team and you didn't call them Hulk or Porn, but that's fine.
That's good.
So this is it's an okay tag team match. There's nothing. It was really quick. It was really fast. There's a lot of fast-paced matches. This is a show where they like wrestling more than Raw, but they still get through things very quickly. So this match was probably about 3-4 minutes, but they tried to cram as much shit in as they possibly could.
So, in 2002, a great wrestling match and a WoW match was, maybe 10, 15 minutes long. At least on American television.
Yeah.
You don't have what we have now where even a standard tag like this is going to go 20 minutes plus.
Yeah, it definitely was a lot more abbreviated at this point in time. Even if those were a tag team title match, a tag team title match on AEW would go 20-25 minutes now.
Yeah.
But this was quick, one and done. Obviously, it's a tag team that never worked together before, really, so they were okay. They didn't have any interesting tag team moves. To be fair, Billy and Chuck didn't have that many good tag team moves either. They were just doing their own moves and just teaming up.
Yeah, I tried to think back and I couldn't recall what their tag team finisher was, and I guess that's because they didn't have one.
But I have to say that Billy is obviously he's a seasoned tag team wrestler. He's one of the most recognizable tag team wrestlers of all time. Chuck is actually pretty good. And this isn't the Chuck of WCW times where he was very great. He's still green, but he's pretty good.
And
I didn't really see anything wrong with them as actual wrestlers.
And this is long before he becomes the light American badass. And I like this tag team. I thought they were pretty good, and I always felt kind of bad that Chuck never got to do anything.
So Rico gets involved towards the end. He's hit with an Alabama Slam. Chuck super kicks Valboski. Billy hits the Faymaster, and the champs retain.
I noticed that Michael Cole called it a Savat kick, and
yeah,
it's a simple thing, but with the amount of super kicks we see nowadays, it was just funny to hear somebody not call it a super kick or sweet chin music.
So more back in 2002 times, Tori Wilson is backstage in a row putting oil on herself.
Yeah.
Yep. God.
This was
she's from Billy and Chuck into this, so we've changing gay rights stuff, Now we're talking about how women's wrestling changes in 18 years.
Yeah, I mean, they're very, very excited to plug this Divas Undressed special on the new TNN. So Spike TV isn't even Spike yet. And they're going to, on Saturday night, have, was it WWE Divas? 8 WWE Divas are going to compete for the Golden Thong. You cannot make this up. This is where we were.
Do you know the story about Divas Undressed?
I don't.
I'm not so much just I don't know the origins of why they decided to do it. I assume they decided to do it because, hey, we've got 8 sexy women. Let's just put them in lingerie and see if that gets some attention. They were meant to have like a prime time slot on, I think, either a Tuesday night or a Monday night on TNN, and they got moved to midnight on Saturday because TNN said that this was too risque. Because it was recorded well in advance. And
you tell me that 8 women being sexual just for the sake of being sexual is too risque for primetime TV on a weekday?
I think was the actual reason for it, and this might be just me speculating, but I feel like it was the part because let's face it. I was a teenager at this point in time. I saw Divas Undressed, so I'm not even gonna lie and pretend that I was above that sort of thing. Like I was a teenager once.
Yeah, like
you get lonely at those sort of times.
Yeah, like this was a very pivotal point. We're just saying that it's good that things have changed the way they
absolutely.
have.
But I'm just saying. I think the reason why they thought it was even too risky, they decided not to do it was the King Cam. Which was, I believe, there was a point where Jerry the King Lawler put a camera in the women's dressing room to try and catch them naked.
Okay, but in fairness, like I said with the Billy and Chuck thing, this is
it's a different time,
very 2002. I can't tell if this is before. I guess it's before because when Spike TV started, they also had Stripperella with Pamela Anderson. Like this was just what people thought of when they saw women on TV at this point, and that is a whole societal issue for another day.
So Tori comes out on stage just showing off some pink lingerie. They talk about Divas Undressed, and that's it. She basically just comes out for a minute and struts around in lingerie and then goes back.
And this is not the only time she will do that.
No, we'll be back to her shortly. But we go back to backstage where we've got Jamie Noble, Nydia, and Tajiri, who are kind of a unit at this point in time. Noble is the Cruiserweight champion. Nydia is his girlfriend. Tajiri is kind of a weird, like, sex partner they have. I don't know. Essentially, Nydia basically takes anybody as a sex partner, and that's kind of the hick gimmick that Jamie Noble and Nydia have.
I believe at this point, this is their first time teaming up. And the deal was, well, if we win, I'll let you have more of Nydia.
Yeah, because Nydia kisses Tajiri and swaps her gum with him.
Yep.
Because, to be fair, I'm a big fan of the Jamie Noble and Nydia characters. They went whole hog with their character. Not to pardon the expression of the hit thing.
It's July of 2003, but there's also a point with these characters where they're once again seen trading partners. They did this a lot, and it's fun for what it is.
They show a recap of Undertaker injuring Triple H. So that's the reason why Triple H is taking a few weeks off during surgery, and why we'll never see him really on SmackDown. Hulk Hogan arrives backstage because he's a big star, and so he doesn't have to appear on time.
Yeah.
The SmackDown Burn of the Night, sponsored by Stacker 2.
Oh, Stacker 2. Now, this is one of those things that, like, because I watched so much wrestling, I assumed everybody knew what Stacker 2 was, because I was always hearing about Stacker 2.
Stacker 2 still exists, by the way.
Yeah, but they're nowhere near as prominent.
No, but they're still selling diet pills, which is essentially what they were doing at this point in time.
And also people behind 5 Hour Energy.
Oh, right. I didn't know that. There's, again, probably like different cultures, that sort of thing. The burn of the night was that Lance Storm cut a promo on how America sucks.
So
this is the
wildly appropriate for 2020.
Yeah, that's pretty true actually. And this is he probably thinks that WWE sucks as well because they fired him as well, pretty much. So,
Yeah.
yeah, this is the origins of the Un-Americans gimmick that would soon follow. So the match that follows it, because one thing I really like about these, I mean, I don't like the fact that they do infomercial things. It's annoying enough as it is, but at least they do those things, and then it immediately transitions onto the same subject for the match. So the burn of the night was Lance Storm kind of promo on how America sucks. It leads on to Lance Storm's match against Mark Henry. At least they're not like it's just some random thing that's just popped up.
Yeah, they're starting to do that again, ironically, also on SmackDown, with the progressive match flow. So perhaps it's just like a network TV thing.
Maybe. So we have Lance Storm versus Mark Henry. So prior to the match, there is a clip of Mark Henry lifting the Thomas Inch dumbbell.
Which is almost impossible to do.
It's something that no person, I think it's either one person or no person had ever been recorded doing with one hand. So essentially what it was a dumbbell with a huge dumbbell that weighed about 700, I don't know how many 100 pounds it was. It was like 600, 700, something like that. And it probably wasn't even that much, so I'm maybe exaggerating. But the reason why it was so hard to lift up is because it had a really tiny grip. And so Henry managed to lift that up over his shoulder. So he was pretty much, at this point, he was widely established as the world's strongest man.
Legitimately, the world's strongest man.
So I have a question for you, Rob.
Okay.
Why, after doing a segment, a nice video package highlighting Mark Henry as the world's strongest man, this really tough, really imposing figure, do you have him job to Lance Storm?
Because America sucks, and we're the Un-Americans are going to be the bigger story, because I believe the week following is the 4th of July.
Yes, absolutely. So we have Henry basically dominates the entire match. He does a spot which I have never seen before or since.
Yeah.
Where he wheels Lance Storm from the floor over the top rope into the ring.
I thought that was awesome, and credit to both men, but that was really cool.
I mean, it's credit to, obviously, Henry's doing a lot of power to lift him up. It was also Lance Storm, like, he's basically putting his life in Mark Henry's hands. And Mark Henry was not always considered, like, the most safe worker. So then Henry hits the world's strongest slam, or what eventually becomes the world's strongest slam, but he doesn't go for a cover, he then goes for a Vader bomb. Storm dodges the Vader bomb, hits springboard drop kick, then hits his super kick, savate kick, whatever you want to call it, and wins the match.
Arguably the first sign of Paul Heyman, putting Lance Storm over, ECW guy. He knows how good Storm is.
Yeah, and Christian celebrates with Storm afterwards because they're a tag team at this point. So,
more importantly, they're fellow Canadians.
Yeah, absolutely, they're fellow Canadians. They both hate America, and yeah, they just beat Mark Henry. It's a nothing match really. It's just a way of trying to get Storm momentum for this Un-Americans gimmick, which is coming through the ranks. Undertaker walks backstage, then gets on his bike. I don't know why we saw him walking backstage. Why can't we just see him driving his bike backstage? I don't get it, but it's fine. I'm going to be so anti-Undertaker for this entire run. It's not going to be unbelievable. If you thought 2001 was bad, this is about to get like a whole nother level.
It's weird because as we're seeing more of like the Last Ride stuff, this is so much closer to the man, Mark Calloway. I have to imagine it was comfortable for him, but I love the dead man so much more.
So WWE Slam of the Week is brought to you by 8-Legged Freaks.
Well, what are you going to do?
And it's Jeff Hardy challenging The Undertaker to that ladder match on Raw, which would happen next week's episode of Raw.
So is that Undertaker to say that Jeff Hardy's the 8-Legged Freak?
No, it was just the fact that it's an Undertaker segment, and so Undertaker comes out next, so they were just linking it in the same way they did with the Storm stuff.
Right.
So Undertaker, obviously, as Undisputed Champion, was wrestling on both shows at the time. So Undertaker comes out. I hate this promo segment. Absolutely detest it because it's one of those promo segments when nothing happens. Until Angle comes out, yeah. But Undertaker just wastes minutes upon minutes just saying how I'm the Undisputed Champion, And the reason why I'm the Undisputed Champion is because I beat people for the Undisputed Championship and I win title matches and blah, 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 blah. He talks about The Rock getting involved in the match, says that he's going to be waiting for The Rock when Rock returns on July the 11th. It just goes on and on. Then Angle comes out. They talk about the fact that Angle pinned Undertaker already. Angle says that he wants to challenge him to a title match on SmackDown next week if he manages to beat Jeff Hardy. Undertaker says, why not tonight? Angle says he's already wrestled tonight. Undertaker accepts his challenge. Then Angle asks if he can hold the championship. So Undertaker gives him the title, tells him that that's going to be the closest he ever comes to it. See, one of the interesting things that I think look at this is that they treat the Undisputed title as having a different lineage to the WWF Championship.
Well, because it kind of...
Well, yeah, it kind of does.
It was supposed to be like a reboot. And one of the things I got from watching this segment was I completely forgot how just gorgeous that title design is.
It's a lovely title.
And it's one of the better WWE championships I think they've ever had. But as we'll see in this journey, Kurt Angle would get a lot closer to that title throughout the many, many months.
Absolutely, but it's just weird the fact that Angle talks about the fact that he's never held that title before. Which is weird because, yeah, you've been a 2-time WWE champion, but it's just, like you say, they were just trying to distinguish the Undisputed title at this point in time. But what happens is Taker turns his back, Angle applies the ankle lock for a few seconds and then runs away. It was a pretty pointless segment, to be fair. It just took up too much time. Not that interesting. And something else that, at least the thing that happened next, just didn't overstay its welcome, which was Tori Wilson coming out in a black bra and panties as her next
Gotta
segment.
get that eye candy in, man.
Yeah. Next match, let's actually get back to some wrestling, which is Test against Rikishi.
Get that freaking workhorse Rikishi.
So Test attacks Rikishi in the corner to start off with. Test scoop slams Rikishi. I'm watching this match. I have to say that when I went back and watched this match wasn't particularly good. I didn't think they meshed well together.
Well, no.
No. Rikishi goes for the bonsai drop. Test gets the knees up into his crotch, which isn't a DQ. I guess it's one of those things where if the guy falls on top of somebody's legs in a position like
accidental.
That, yeah. Well, it's not really accidental because Test knows what he's doing, putting his knees up there. But it's like an atomic drop. What we're going to see a lot of is Rikishi doing his inside-out bump for the clotheslines.
Oh my god,
that's his most impressive thing. I don't know how a guy of that size can do a bump like that.
I think he did it at much smaller sizes, and I guess once you've got that rhythm, it's not difficult to maneuver your body. I don't know.
So the story of the match is essentially that Test is constantly getting in the face of Mike Chioda. And eventually he threatens to punch Mike Chioda, but he doesn't. Rikishi pushes Test into Chioda. Chioda goes down. Test big boots Rikishi. He's got the pin. He's got the win. But the referee DQs Test because he got pushed over by him inadvertently. So Test thinks that he's been screwed. He has been screwed. But then again, he shouldn't have been getting the ref face in the first place. So he pushed the ref down. Rikishi attacks him, does the stink face to him, and then Lance Storm and Christian come out to pull Test away and make the save.
Damn American referee.
But essentially, this is setting them up as a trio together. They're all anti-Americans. So Hulk Hogan meets with Vince McMahon backstage. I also clocked the fact that he had the poster of a near-naked Stacy Keibler on his wall.
We're going to see a lot more of that.
Yeah. The man said that he was upset about Hulk Hogan's loss to Angle. He's obviously mocking Hogan, saying like, "Oh, boo-hoo, you lost to Kurt Angle. Does this mean that Hulkamania's running out of steam? Like, you tapped out. You must be... How embarrassing it'll be when you tap out to the walls of Jericho tonight," that sort of thing. And Hogan just basically says one day and pokes Vince McMahon in the chest, and Vince McMahon sells it like he's being like stabbed in the chest.
Oh, cool. Well, Vince is very good. One thing I can never say about the McMahons is they're fucking great characters.
They're never subtle, are they?
They're never.
What happens is that they were meant to be building towards a Hogan against Vince match at SummerSlam. But it never happened, obviously, because Hogan left before SummerSlam. Or at least like took a hiatus for a little while, and they decided to push it back. And Vince decided to take time off TV when he brought in Stephanie McMahon and Eric Bischoff as general managers.
Do you think that one led to the other? Well, no, because Hogan is there.
Mm.
right
Well, no,
through SummerSlam.
well, no,
So,
he leaves after being beaten by Brock.
but that's only, I think, a few days before he has to fight The Rock.
Yeah, it's before Brock fights The Rock, but Hogan doesn't appear again until 2003.
I know, but I'm just saying, I guess with the closeness, they could have done the match, theoretically, had they
Oh yeah,
wanted
they could
it.
have done it, but Vince. It was mainly due to the fact that Vince had taken himself off TV.
Yeah, he seems to flirt with that idea a lot throughout the time that he's been on TV, of like, I don't want to be a character anymore,
Yeah,
but then
but
always brings
he always has
himself
to come back because the ratings don't improve,
right.
and he thinks that he brings the ratings, which in many cases he has done, but
Yes, yeah.
it's not as much as it used to anymore. Backstage, the Un-Americans talk about how corrupt WWE officials are and all Americans are. So this is the start of the Un-Americans collective. We'll see more of that next week on the 4th of July episode, where it really gets into high gear. Then we have another tag team match. Jamie Noble and Tajiri with Nidia against Billy Kidman and the Hurricane.
I like this for what it was.
Oh yeah, this was I really enjoyed it. It's another like really rapid tag team match, but it's with the cruiserweights, and I think at this point in time the cruiserweights really feel different still.
Oh yeah, well look at the roster. You still have a Hulk Hogan. You have an Undertaker full time. So the cruiserweights were allowed to feel different.
So Noble won the cruiserweight title from the Hurricane and King of the Ring, so they're kind of like the two that are feuding. I thought this was just really rapid. There's no real psychology, but it's just 4 cruiserweights to go out and put on some of their best moves, which is totally fine. Tajiri
Kidman
hit
wins with the go ahead.
I was gonna say Tajiri hit like what seemed like the 20th super kick of the night. It's just odd. There's 2002 and there's already too many people that do super kicks.
And it's nowhere near. At least it's still at that point mostly a finisher.
Yeah. So Hurricane choke slams Tajiri, then the shooting star press by Kidman, and then the baby faces win.
Yeah, Kidman always had a beautiful shooting star, and I forgot how fun of a move, and still really cool to this day, the tarantula is.
Oh, the tarantula's really cool. I always love like the tarantula and the handspring elbow are kind of just so cool moves. I you say that Kidman had a beautiful shooting star press. I think Kidman has the ugliest shooting star press in wrestling history.
Really?
Except Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 19.
Okay.
But his shooting star press, he seems like he's never in control of it.
He's the first guy I ever saw do it, so I kind of equate the move to him.
No, I totally understand that. I just feel like because how many people did he injure with that move? He injured quite a few people with that move, didn't he?
Actually, it was banned for quite a while because Kidman kept injuring people with that move.
Yeah, so it just seemed like I look at Mark Andrews now doing a shooting star press, and he just looks so much more elegant and in control. Whereas Kidman's one, he doesn't get as much height, and I think it looks cool in the sense that he has a more of an interesting rotation about it, but it's so much more out of control and reckless.
That's fair.
So backstage we see Tori Wilson approaches Stacy Keibler, who's in a robe. And Keibler says that she's going to go out and steal Tori Wilson's spotlight because women don't feud in the ring; they feud with their bodies in this in this period of time.
So Tori comes
So Tori comes out in another like pink lingerie set. Stacy Keibler then follows her in a schoolgirl outfit,
wearing a very Tori wearing a very 2002 candy necklace.
Mm.
For whatever reason, like that was the takeaway for me because I just felt, my God, that looks so dumb, but this was the style.
Can I ask? Is the schoolgirl outfit fetish like really disturbing?
Yes, especially like the older I get, the more I'm like, this sends out really weird vibes.
Mm. And then if there wasn't enough hot women on the screen, Dawn Marie comes out in another like pink like outfit which like has got holes cut in the legs, so just you can just see her bare ass, pretty much.
So yeah, I feel the need to say, and this is not a wrestling thing, this is more like a 2002 thing. I'm so glad that we really did move away from this weird era where like women that were on TV at the time seemed okay with being completely just used for sexual purposes.
Yeah, and the point it's beyond that point. They only feud with each other. And their only animosity towards each other is that I'm more beautiful than you, or I'm sexier than you. It's not about like who's the better wrestler, or who's like in the right or the wrong about situations. It's, oh no, I think I'm hotter than you, and no, I'm hotter than you, and that's
And
basically.
we're gonna tear each other's clothes. It's like, come on, man. And like, don't get me wrong. Yes, we all loved it to a point, but it seems so lowbrow now.
Just because people find it exciting and find it like, oh, it's so, and some people say, oh, we want this type of thing back. It's so unprogressive, and it's so
Yeah,
base. Like it's just glad that we moved beyond it to a point where the women are treated as well. I wouldn't say on equal footing as of yet, but they're treated as wrestlers, and that's what we want to see. Want to see that form of evolution going forward.
yeah, and don't get me wrong. Like, there room for both?
There's room for both. It's just the fact that
Absolutely.
there wasn't really both at this point. So.
No, and it was the bare minimum of effort.
This is also kind of a condition of a Paul Heyman thing, because let's face it, this is what the women were used in ECW as well.
And let's face it, when he got the control of Raw, Lana and Liv Morgan.
Then we have, so what happens is that Dawn Marie shoves Tori and Stacey. Tori and Stacey get into like a cat fight, and Stacey almost teases throwing Tori off the stage.
To which, and to be clear, like, it's not like, a long way down. It's kind of just a small drop and towards a padded area, and there was just this look of absolute fear on Tori's face that something physical might happen to her in the world of professional wrestling.
Well, let's face it. Like, I know it's like saying like something physical or anything like that. I think it's more due to the fact that she was almost thrown off the stage.
Well, I mean, it's a fair thing. I'm pretty sure they will end up throwing her off the stage, except there'll be like a chocolate pudding pool.
That was Trish.
But same concept, right? Because it was Stacey, wasn't it?
That to me, like, I don't think people obviously don't credit that enough. That is a fucking scary bump. Like, she's going from the top of a pretty high stage into a pool, which I assume doesn't have the softest like bottom at the end of it. I know it's inflatable, but there's only so much you can really, so much air you can put into it.
But yeah, I don't know if Stacey and Tori ever get in the ring. I know you watched a few episodes, so you'll probably be able to tell me.
I can't remember exactly, but I don't know how much, because Stacey's not on SmackDown for much longer beyond, because she moves post SummerSlam, I think.
Well, I think it would have been nice had they had able to have one match or do something, because Tori is the face of SmackDown's women, but it's literally just to be attractive.
So we have a Chris Jericho promo where he talks about destroying Hulk Hogan, and they show a clip of him attacking Edge's injured arm. So obviously that'll play into the main event. Have a hype package for Rey Mysterio, who will debut in a few weeks' time.
So. Yeah, they put the mask back on him, rectifying one of the worst atrocities of WWE's history.
And the guy that decided that is coming into Raw soon, so at least Mysterio knows that he won't have to deal with him if he's on SmackDown.
That's right.
Then we have another tag team match, quite a few tag team matches on this show. Reverend Devon and Deacon Batista, I think he's just referred to as Batista at this point in time, against Farouk and Randy Orton.
There's a lot here, and also simultaneously, nothing here.
Yeah, there's not much that obviously happens. This is it's weird because we now know that the two essentially young boys in this tag team match are two of the biggest stars in wrestling from the 2000s and 2010s. And the two guys that they're teaming with are two veterans that are kind of really known in WWE as tag team guys.
Really just a strange tag team match, but considering Evolution is less than a year away, It's a lot of fun to watch. And I enjoy watching young boy Randy Orton because he's trying to do like top rope face crushers and that one crossbody he was really known for. And you wouldn't see Randy Orton do any of that now.
No. No, Randy Orton's a lot more just methodical. This is like Randy Orton that's just trying just a young wrestler who's just trying to make a name for himself. And the other young wrestler is Batista, who basically spends most of this match outside the ring, just on the apron, as Devon does basically everything. Devon does a single leg drop kick at some point. I thought, okay, that's... Batista blind tags, so he doesn't actually get like a physical tag from Devon. He has to tag himself in. Immediately levels Orton with a clothesline, then hits the spine buster eventually and pins Orton to win.
1, 2, 3, yeah.
So Batista doesn't do much, but he's basically, they present him as like Cole and Taz go really big on his size and his just presence on commentary. So Batista's like the star of this match. Like they see, okay, Batista, that's a guy we want moving forward. And it's funny that Orton isn't really on that level, considering the fact that he's got the legacy behind him. Obviously not the actual legacy, that would come in 2009, but
Orton would have never been that guy if not for Triple H pulling that guy out of Orton. Because Batista, you don't need anything but eyes to see this guy looks like $1 million.
Yeah, at this point in time, Orton is still just, okay, he's Bob Orton's junior son. That's cool.
And at that point, to be fair, you know, Bob Orton was just seen as another guy who bumped for Hogan.
Yeah, so that was nothing match. And then we move on to the main event, which is Hulk Hogan against Chris Jericho. So there's obviously the network, you hear fake Hogan music because they don't have the rights to Voodoo Child.
I wonder how much that would cost you every time you need to play that.
Why can't they just do Real American instead? Why they have to come up with some other just like fake Voodoo Child music?
It depends on the era that you get, because some of them used to actually do Real American, but I think they figured out that Real American with the Hollywood Hulk Hogan entrance doesn't exactly mesh. So I think that's why they try to do something that might actually work with his cheesy air guitar intro.
Oh, one thing we haven't really mentioned, because it hasn't really brought up to this point, is the fact that you have when it's their entrance on SmackDown, they don't have like a slide at the bottom of the screen which says their name, whatever. They have a panel on the left-hand side which has their name there. Essentially, it says WWF.com.
If they're champion.
Yeah, if they're champion, and then their Titantron playing at the bottom.
I really like the Titantron on the bottom thing. I think that's really cool.
It doesn't really work now when there's no Titantron.
Yeah, Titantrons used to be a big deal.
But Hogan's one is different. It doesn't have WWF.com. He has redandyellow.com.
Redandyellow.com, which would just probably lead to his bio on the WWE.com page.
I put the thing into my URL and it just links through to www.com homepage. They didn't
I wonder how much they spend on domain renewals for shit like that, like redandyellow.com, WWFdivas.com.
I would say it's probably a significant amount, but I'd probably also say they're pretty good for it. Like, I don't think they're struggling because, oh my god, we've got so many domains we have to redirect us. I don't think that's draining the coffers too much.
Yeah, I would imagine.
So this is Y2J Jericho, which is, again, it's a Jericho that we kind of grew up with, but it's weird to see after so many other iterations of Chris Jericho, this Jericho being there.
I will say, as far as the Y2J stuff goes, this is probably my favorite, like, Titantron. Jericho, I think, is at the peak of the Y2J character here, and it's probably as good as Jericho would get for a while until he rebrands with the best in the world at what I do kind of stuff.
So this match just kind of happens. It's kind of like just starts off with the standard Hogan thing of just pushing around Jericho and punching him and just playing to the crowd. Jericho eventually nails a low blow when Hogan's like intimidating the referee. That's when the heat happens. The crowd is so behind Hulk Hogan, it's unreal. He's more over than any wrestler, I think, nowadays.
Oh, I don't even think that's like almost unfair. But really, it shouldn't be because by 2002, people should have been over Hogan, and
But they
were
weren't.
not.
It's ridiculous the fact that, like, even though what he was doing was so basic, like, he's just punching people in the head. Like, nowadays, people would just get on your back for it, because they get on the back of, like, John Cena for doing that spinning back fist thing, which is shitty anyway.
Yeah.
But yes, but it's just like they wouldn't stand. I don't think they would stand for it as much as others. But then again, the Undertaker doesn't do much, and they still love the Undertaker.
It's just there's no clearer indicator of somebody's character just being more over than anything else than you could have 5 moves of doom and the audience will pop big because they love you and they love the feeling that you bring and the nostalgia that you bring.
You know what I never expected to see is Chris Jericho putting Hulk Hogan in an abdominal stretch.
Certain moves just don't exist anymore, and the abdominal stretch is one of them.
This is a match from the 1980s. This is a Hogan match from the 1980s, just brought to life.
But it worked.
Yeah, I mean, it worked all the time. Like, Hogan's matches worked. Jericho hits the Lion Salt. Hogan hulks up. He kicks out and hulks up. They do the big, like, Hogan cell thing. Jericho then gets a chair on the outside, hits Hogan in the head with it. So that's the DQ. So Jericho feigns that he's going to do the same thing to Hogan on the steel steps that he did to Edge. But then Jericho's music plays, and Jericho's confused because why is his music playing? And then out comes Edge, who's back from his injury. He's like feeling good. He's out to save Hulk Hogan. Edge charges down the ring, beats up Jericho. Hogan stops Jericho escaping over the barricade, throws him back in the ring. Edge hits the spear, and Edge and Hogan celebrate together. They do like the big Hogan poses together,
which was really cool for Edge because like that was the beginning of like Edge was like, yeah, I'm a Hulk Hogan guy, and this is a special moment for me. But my takeaway from this was, while it was probably a Heyman thing to have Edge do the Jericho entrance, it's kind of dumb. Like, why would he want to do that?
Yeah, it's a little weird. Like, if you're just trying to run in and save him, either play your music or don't play any music whatsoever and jump in from the crowd and save him.
Come from behind him in the crowd and then beat his ass.
But that's always been a very WWE thing. Is you always play your entrance music before you come out, rather than usually come. Like, it's only
the worst friends in the world, man. I'm only gonna save you if my music plays.
Yeah, and I also have to do not even my full entrance. I have to do someone else's full entrance before I come down as well. So I think overall, my thoughts on the show is it's pretty inauspicious. It just seems like an episode from that time. The big monumental thing is the Cena Angle match, but that in itself,
we don't see the seeds of that actually grow for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we can look back at it retrospectively and say how big of an important moment it was, but at the time, if you're trying to look at it in its little 2002 cocoon, it's just a match of a young guy that they're trying to build up quickly against Kurt Angle. It's nothing really much more than that. And there's no other match on the show that's really a show stealer, as it were. There's nothing. Most of the matches are pretty quick, or they're tag team matches, don't really accomplish much. And the main event is a Hogan 1980s match, which is fun in its own right, but it's not. You're never going to say, "Oh, I have to go back and watch that multiple times."
That being said, just saying some of the names that appear on this show.
Oh yeah, again, historically,
still comes across like, wow, this was just SmackDown. You know, it's just one of those things. And like, to be fair, I guess that's just a generational thing. It's always going to be like that. There will be some kid who, if you say, you know, Raw featured Apollo Crews versus Humberto Carrillo, like, because that's that kid's era, he'll be like, oh man, this was so great. But like, if you look at the lineage, the actual, like, on paper, look at everybody they have signed here, does it get any more star-studded?
Probably not at this point, no. So it's only going to get less, unfortunately, probably as the journey goes on. But having said that, that's the first episode of the journey pretty much wrapped up. So just to get a bit of admin out of the way, so the SmackDown show did, as mentioned, 3.79 to 3.7. So we're going to call this a tie between Raw and SmackDown on the ratings front. Nothing special episode of SmackDown. I think the next episode is something that we're going to be more looking forward to, which is the July the 4th special. What we're going to see on that show, just as a prelude to it. So we have Hulk Hogan and Edge versus Billy and Chuck for the World Tag Team Championships. We're going to see another tag team match involving Reverend Devon and Batista against Randy Orton, but who will Randy Orton's partner be?
Ooh.
Yeah. We get to see Chris Jericho against John Cena.
We will see that quite a few times.
Yeah. We see Tori Wilson against Stacy Keibler. I just remember it now, just taking back my notes. They do actually have a match in a bra and panties match.
Of course.
And we have the main event, an undisputed championship match between The Undertaker and Kurt Angle.
And as a little added bonus, this was a big day in America. This was the first Independence Day after 9/11. And WWE will use that to get some cheap heat, but more on that the next time we see you.
Okay, so that's the end of our first episode. Let's just need to get a few plugs out of the way. So if you've enjoyed this and would like to try and support us on a more monetary side, there's obviously the Patreon, where if you donate to the $10 tier, you'll be able to hear our dark casts of the pay-per-views that are taking place during this time. So the next one will be in July for Vengeance.
And
go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you want to support Tony Mango, who obviously is the person who lets us do all of this, you can check out the Fanboys Anonymous Patreon, the Smark Out Moment Patreon, and there's also the corresponding merchandise shops. So there's the TeePublic and Redbubble for both of them, and there's also a Mango Tees. So all that is good ways to support Tony, and in supporting Tony, you support us. And Callum, you got any more?
Just pretty much, if you want to like the video, leave a comment down below, just share it with your friends, anything you want to do to keep this journey alive and fresh, because we really want to bring as many people along for the ride as we possibly can as we go back over Paul Heyman's run of SmackDown. You can join the Megamaniacs if you want to carry on other conversations about wrestling, about the more current day wrestling product, or just share a meme or whatever. It's totally allowable. Follow Smark Out Moment on Facebook, follow them on Twitter, everything, all those other platforms. Check out all the weekly articles on smarkoutmoment.com, including my power rankings, but that's just specifically for me. That'll just give you some brownie points in my book, but check out all the rest of them as well while you're there.
Yes.
Rob, you want to hand out your own ones?
Yeah, you can check out WrestleZone.com and Fightful.com. Those are great wrestling websites that I also contribute to. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DeFelice. And, as always, just a final reminder, best way to support, hit up the Patreon. Any amount helps, but after $10 and above, you get access to the Darkcast. And if you want to join the Pick Your Poison tier and make us watch all the weekly NWA TNA pay-per-views, or watch Velocity to continue our journey through Paul Heyman SmackDown, you can do that through the Pick Your Poison tier. But that's it for me, and I'll let Callum sign us off.
Okay, just finally, you can follow me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. And yeah, that's the first official episode, should I say, of the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast. Hope you join us next week for episode 2. But for now, this has been another Smark Out Moment, and we're being counted out.